Two-headed right, two heads are better than one-headed right. Two heads are better than one-headed right. Two heads are better than one-headed right. Two heads are better than one.
Hello! Welcome back to our channel. My name is Evalyn.
And my name is Monty.
And together we are the Two-Headed Writer, a father-daughter writing team, originally from Stillwater, Oklahoma, although I am currently living and going to school in Iowa City, Iowa at the University of Iowa.
It's a lot of Iowa.
It is a lot of Iowa.
And every week we get together and have this conversation to catch one another up on our writing progress. And we talk about the book we wrote together. We talk about the books we're each writing individually. We talk about Evalyn's assignments in school and anything we are struggling with writing-wise. And Evalyn.
Yes.
You're doing NaNoWriMo.
I am doing NaNoWriMo.
So for our viewers who might not know what NaNoWriMo is, it's all over Twitter if you follow writers on Twitter, but NaNoWriMo stands for National Novel Writing Month. The idea is that every November, writers are challenged to write an entire novel during the month of November. And it's to encourage you to turn your inner editor off and just get words on the page, get a rough draft done.
We actually, our Together book that we talk about all the time, we used NaNoWriMo in like 2014, I believe, to launch our first draft. We did not finish our first draft. We hit the 50,000 word goal and then kept going.
Yeah, we ended up with 150,000 words by the time we finished our first draft.
We had a few chapters beforehand, and we spent November really writing, hit the 50,000, and it wasn't until the following April of 2015, I believe, that we actually finished the first draft right before my birthday.
Right, because as a birthday present, I had the whole thing printed out for you. And so we still have a printed bound copy of the first draft. Then we spent a lot of time trying to make it shorter. We have learned so much just from this one book, I think. And even if it never gets published, it was, where we learned to write, basically. So that's how I see it.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. So, Evalyn, you signed up this year and you're doing it, and you are at how many words?
3,055.
Okay.
And I haven't worked on my project today. I've been working on writing for class. I need to write 1,677 words today. Basically, you're supposed to write 1,667 words a day, something like that.
You're writing on the novel that we've been talking about, that you've been outlining.
The Quest.
With the talking trees.
With the talking trees.
Awesome.
I now have 3 scenes, parts of chapters, mostly dialogue, because that's like easier to write like quickly.
Yeah.
And then when I need like padding on my account, I'll go back in and take the time to like describe things.
Yeah, I do the same. If I'm writing a scene and I'm trying to like actually get words on the page, I'll just do dialogue with no additional words, just dialogue. Because the writing I'm doing on my own book right now, I am revising the first draft, and I'm having to add little scenes here and there because I rearranged everything. And so I'm writing and I'm like taking forever putting all the pieces together because I don't write linearly, right? I put a blob of words on the page and then I go back and fix them and I add to them and like do the dialogue first and add stuff in between like we talked about. But I was thinking this might be a crazy thing to do, a crazy way to spend your time. But once the draft is done, to just go back and print it out, put it next to you, and just retype it straight through. And you might make changes as you go, but just to train your brain and your fingers to write linearly, so that when you're trying to be in a hurry and write a rough draft, you can start at the top and write down, but just to sort of get those patterns in your head of what it sounds like when it's done.
I just wanted, for the uninformed in the audience, a pantser is somebody who writes by the seat of their pants. They just start a project with no clear vision for where it's going to end up, or at least nothing that they've spent time plotting out. Like, they might have the whole story up here,
or they might just have some very vivid ideas of characters and a conflict and maybe an inciting incident, something to get them started, but they don't know where things are headed, so they just start writing to find out.
Yeah, and they draft a whole thing like that, and then they'll go back and edit it and make it better then, but the entire first draft is just kind of word vomited out. Whereas a planner is somebody who would take the time leading up to NaNoWriMo or whenever they wanted to start writing to actually really focus in and plot something out, have an entire outline, have, like a notebook like I have for this project.
You've been working on your outline for quite a while.
Because I got a big idea burst at the beginning and then got the basic, like, broadest outline of, like, okay, they start here, they got to go to these places, these specific things I want to happen, and then they got to get back, right? Like, I had the quest format, and having the quest format even made it easy to tell where it was going and where it needed to start and end. However, what took me longer and what I still don't totally have fleshed out is the specific details of, like, the little subparts of the quest, the little hurdles they have to jump over in order to get from A to B to C and back to A.
If you would like to leave a comment, we would love to hear from you about whether you are a planner or a pantser, and maybe a word about why. Or if you haven't tried writing anything yet, well, how do you think you might proceed? So planner or pantser? In the comments. Let's see some comments. Come on, man. That's where we're at with our own writing. How about our together book? Since you're doing NaNoWriMo, am I ever going to get some comments on my latest draft of chapters 1 through 4?
You definitely will. I'm trying a new thing where I'm doing everything in 30-minute chunks during my free time. So, like, I write for 30 minutes, then I edit for 30 minutes, then I read for 30 minutes, then I do notes for 30 minutes, then I take notes for 30 minutes, etc., etc. So that I don't just spend a really big chunk of time doing one thing, and I, like, balances it out a little bit more. It's one of my things to do in the little chunks of time that I have.
Alrighty. Well, how about your classwork? Anything interesting to report there?
So we, in my playwriting class, are talking about this play by Sarah Rule called Eurydice. It's a retelling of the Orpheus and Eurydice myth from Greek mythology. So we read 2 versions of that, and then we read the play, which is fun because it's an adaptation, which is something that I enjoy hearing about, reading. And then I also, next Monday, have an assignment due for that class that I'm working on right now. And I have a weird concept that I came up with right as I was falling asleep last night, and I, like, woke myself up, like, typed in my notes app the concept, and then, like, fell asleep immediately after. And this morning I was like, okay, this is solid, but like, so
Yeah, okay. Maybe you could reword the part.
I tried to start writing it, and I was like, it seemed so clear in my mind last night, and now it seems less clear. Like I fell asleep thinking about like how it could be worded and like what the voice would sound like, and I woke up and I was like, how do I do that?
You can't always trust your sleepy brain. Your sleepy brain sees things that aren't there sometimes.
No, I think it's a good concept. Okay, so because I was on my phone like reading stuff, and I read this thing about this folklore version for somewhere in England where werewolves are like a folklore thing, and but like specifically talking about how there is a belief that if a werewolf's loved one went and sought them out and called them by name and asked them to come home, that they would revert back into a human and be able to go home, right? And then there was like another version where if they brought them their human clothes, they could give them the clothing, and that would save them from the werewolfiness. And in the post that I read, somebody was like, you know, people would want to turn this romantic, but what if it was like their mom or their grandmother? And wolf and grandmother and clothes collided in my brain and was like, Red Riding Hood. So I'm writing a story where you're following this grandmother as she journeys into this dark part of the forest to find her granddaughter, the werewolf, and give her this cloak and bring her back home.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it's a solid concept, right? Like it makes sense.
But then when you're half asleep, like you see it, you think you see it very clearly. Then when you think about it later, you're like, well, it's not as clear as I thought. But still, then you just have to work on it.
So if you like this video and you want to keep following us on our writing journey, then click that subscribe button down below. And you could also ring the little bell icon so you can be notified whenever we post a new video.
Hey, Evalyn.
Yes.
So all that stuff you just described, that's if we're looking at it on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people get to see this on Twitter and maybe just watch it from Twitter. So how do they subscribe then?
Go to YouTube.
If you're on Twitter watching this, click on the video so you can go to YouTube, and then you'll see the stuff she's talking about.
Yes, so we will be back next week with another video. And until then, remember,
2 heads are better than one.